Welcome to Section 31, episode number 337. I'm Dan Hammond.
And I'm Rogue Schindler.
This week, we've got some tidbits of information, nothing terribly exciting. We're going to talk about errata from first edition. We have some 0-hour things to talk about, not card-related specifically, although we might talk about one or two of them, but peripheral continuing committee things. I'm heading off to Origins in a couple of days, so we'll do a preview for that. And anything else? I think that's a roundup.
I forgot to bring I was going to have a jar of jelly here so I could hold it up when you mentioned going to Jordan's because I'm jealous.
Yes, it should be a good time. I'm only signed up for one event. It's the Rick and Morty Anatomy Park Cryptozoic game.
Excellent.
It should be fun. That was a fantastic episode. I'm going to have to watch it again before I go. Maybe on the flight there.
Oh, geez, Rick.
So I'm looking forward to that. That's the middle of the day. But I also found out that True Dungeon has returned or is showing up at Origins for the first time.
Oh, nice.
And it's unlike Gen Con's $68 or $78, it's $42 for a ticket.
Nice.
So,
well, then it must be. I wonder if is it going to be different stories? We look to see what they're called. If it's the same as the.
It is too late to pre-register for anything, so I'm going to find out if I can get a couple of sessions or get a session for a couple of us on Saturday. If I can do that, I will. Saturday not at the same time as this Rick and Morty thing. Otherwise, I also have a bunch of generic tokens, 18 generic tokens for playing ACG. So there was some news on that front. It sounds like they're not releasing a new set this year. They're going to hold off and release a new one probably next year.
Yeah, that was interesting. It was kind of a blog follow-up to the epic silence of news from on the ACG front from PaizoCon, which was over Memorial Day weekend.
Which we
another
had
one of those
thoughts about going to, right?
We did. We considered it. Just I don't know. There was other things. Celebration came up, which was unexpected, and neither of us knew that we were going to go until
pretty late,
relatively late in the game, and that kind of was our spring con. So I would still like to do it at some point. It would be fun. I would like to do it on the train, which I think would be even more fun, up to Seattle and play games on the way there, and then maybe fly back. But in any event, I guess based on the context of the blog, Mike Sillenker, who is the lead designer of the game and the head of Lone Shark Games, which is the contracted design company that made the ACG, has come up and announced the next box at each of the previous PaizoCons. And they did not do that this year. He just didn't come up and do anything. And I guess that is because, not because there will not be one, but I guess they are re-examining the mechanics I liked that he was very specific to say is not in a second edition style version, but in a, how can we make the next box so that you don't have to keep buying new versions of the same cards over and over again, because that is kind of, it's a little bit like Dominion. If they had had to put copper and silver and gold into every box and all of the states and everything, and all those base cards they have to make new versions of, and there's they do a good job of making new interesting versions of the main characters, but there's usually the characters are guys we've seen before. So they want to improve on that and on some of the mechanics. And there are a couple of things with closing that a lot of people mentioned, but I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head. But I know, as an example, when we played the Firefly version of Legendary, we went through and we were looking at the sort of the differences in the revision between that and the Marvel's Legendary. And I was like, this game is so much better because of these kind of updates to the core rules. And it sounds like that's kind of the idea of what they're looking to do. And they're taking suggestions, which I think is amazing. Like, who does that? you know, that's fantastic. That's one thing that Paizo has been kind of amazing at, which is taking audience feedback and, you know, incorporating it, or, you know, suggestions or creative input. And that's great. I think it's really good that they're going to take that, you know, issues with the mechanics that people have been having and sort of try to refine it before making another box.
I mean, that's what you would hope for, you know, listening to feedback, customer feedback, all the people that play, organize play. They've got a ton of people that come out and play weekly, you know, at game stores for them. So I'd be foolish to not tap into that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, I mean, they've tried to do that over the years, and I know there have been, they call out some specific updates to, you know, mechanics or wording things, that some that we have liked and we have noticed over the years, some we have not liked. I know I don't really care, but I know a lot of people are like salty about the refresh, or the recharge text for spells used to be like separate as a
That's
separate
right. It used to have its
box.
own line, so you could see it easily, and now it's just tacked onto the
Yeah,
text.
which I'm sure is, you know, so they could fit more. You know, it's an extra line of text instead of that bar of template in the way, which, you know, we're familiar with as a design issue.
Yeah, certainly.
So, you know, that's cool. I mean, obviously they're in the earliest stages of it right now. That means that there's not going to be a new box this year. It says that at earliest there will be a new box next year for Gen Con, because it's always been released at Gen Con, but maybe more like December next year, which, you know, as excited as I always am for new content, we just finished the second box, and there are 4.
There are 4 out now, and yeah, we've gotten a little bit into the third one. We've, you know, scratched the surface of the fourth one, but it'd be nice to go back and actually finish the hard box and then, you know, play the next one. Certainly, yeah.
Yeah. So that's some pretty good news, and even better news, I guess, if you're in the league front, the guild front, which is they're not going to interrupt that. There's still going to be another season. They're not going to wait until there's another box to create a new season, and that season is going to use the same box. It's going to continue using Mummy's Mask, and that season is going to premiere at Gen Con. So I am a little more excited.
That sounds fun. I'm glad. I think I got a bunch of generics waiting for me at Gen Con as well. So
yeah,
that will be entertaining to sit at those tables for a bit.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. We get through at least a first adventure with a new character.
I'll see if they've got anything new at Origins. I think last year at Origins they had, I think, a preview of maybe it was a gunslinger that came out at Gen Con. So I'll be on the lookout for that again. Usually they set up a couple of tables kind of in the walkway between places. It was not really a room, but just, you know, kind of off to the side. And that fella Eric, who was always at the tables, is usually there the whole time. And I think I joined him for about a day last year. So I'll be there probably for about a day or so, a day's worth of gaming, just to play around, see if there's anything new. I need to either pick up a new deck or figure out what I'm going to bring with me, because I've played through most of the 2 characters that I've had over the last couple of years, so I'm out. I need to start over again.
I have plenty, so if there's something, I can send you a list, and if you want, if one of those piques your interest, you know, every time one, I've used maybe half of them, so I don't think I've touched the Druid box. I've got the Summoner is awesome. That's what I'm using right now. But what's the Bow Inquisitor looks really cool. I haven't used that at all yet. Monk is awesome. I always highly recommend Monk if you want to borrow that. So I can send you a list and see if there's anything you're interested in.
I've got, like I said, I've got 3 of the 4, you know, classics. I've got Wizard and Fighter and Cleric, and I haven't cracked open the Cleric one yet. So I might just take a look at that. Although, ever since after the first couple of sets, they started focusing a little bit more, and instead of what was it, 4-3 instead of 4 or something like that. So the newer
those early decks are tough because they split their attention a little too much, but they can still be fun. I know Brian had a lot of fun playing. That was the first one he played, was the iconic cleric, Kyra. So
Yeah. So I'll take a look at that. If they've got something new, I might just thumb through, because I've got those ultra row boxes, full of cards. Just start playing with something random
yeah.
there, and then you end up buying it. That's their plan.
Well, of course. Well, you're already an adventure in. You might as well.
Exactly. You got to keep playing.
Keep going.
That's an investment. Sunk cost. All right. So I've got the Rick and Morty game. I've got the potential True Dungeon. I've got probably a day's worth of ACG. The Pathfinder game. I want to say there's something. Oh, I'm going to hit up. Is it Fantasy Flight? Is that the people doing the L5R?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to go by their booth and see if I can see what they've got. If they've got any previews of what's coming out at Gen Con for folks going to Origins instead. I'm going to find out what the deal is, and if the 300 person cap is really a 300 person cap, if there's another way to squeak in. Just because you and Charlie have talked up that game so much. I think I might have played it once or twice in the years that you guys played, but
I remember doing our first demo together at Gen Con, maybe our first Gen Con.
Could be.
Back in the day when they gave out fresh starters. And those ended up being coveted. Like, those were the second starter decks. So they had clan heirlooms in the starters, and the very first set was the swords, and those were like crazy expensive, popular. And then the next set, which is what we got, was the armors. So we got those clan armors. That was really cool, and I had a good time playing. I don't know.
I just remember, let's see, there was like you had your deck split up into two piles, and then you had 3 cards in the middle. And am I making that up?
That's absolutely right.
Right, and then if you start losing resources in the middle, and eventually you run out of your cards in the middle, and you're dead. Right? Is that how it went?
Yep.
All right.
Your one deck is nouns, and that feeds the cards in the middle. So you've got your 4 provinces, and then your other deck is verbs, and that's where you draw your hand. And you flip over the cards in front of you, and you can play them from your provinces. So if you get attacked, you discard that card there, and you no longer have that slot. So now you're down to 3, and you only have 3 cards that you can possibly get out next turn.
Yeah. So that was the original complaint I had about the game is once you start losing, it seemed to me difficult to come back because your resources go down as you lose more, right? Yeah.
That was a common complaint about the game. There was a significant rich get richer, poor get poorer curve. Like, once you start losing, it's hard to pull out of the nosedive. But that has actually been one of the things that they've supposedly taken into account.
Well, then that sounds great. I'm excited again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll check that out. When I come back on Monday and we do another show, I'll give a report of what I can find there about the L5R, and of course I'll talk about the Rick and Morty, and maybe I won't talk about True Dungeon if it's going to be the same scenario. I have zero confidence. No, that's not fair. I'm
Non-zero confidence.
I'm going with folks that are not traditional gamers, so I don't know if we'll make it past the first room, but I'll let you know how we do.
Oh, nobody dies in the first room.
Yeah.
Like, not a TPK.
We'll find out. I have been working on my chart memorization, so I'm almost there. And I found a bag of my old tokens, so they're probably all worthless, but I'll bring them along anyway.
It's better than nothing. And I think you get like a bag of commons just for coming in and playing.
Okay.
And that was still a thing when I played again for the first time in many years, 2 years ago.
I think I played maybe 3 adventures. And I remember the first time, we got all these tokens and we're looking around and trading them. And as we played, we ended up using them. So by the end, we were kind of spent. The second or third time we played, we just had to show them that we had it, and then we got to keep it the whole time. So it was kind of like an ongoing thing.
Yeah. There's different ones now. It's like just like what you said, you have permanence. So you have things you can start out with. Okay, I've got an armor, or I've got a hat, I've got a sword, I've got a shield, So one per slot, and so you lay them out, and they note that you have them, and then you put them away so you don't lose them during the game, and then you keep your consumables, which they will take from you. You keep those handy, so you can use. Okay, I'm going to use a healing potion, or I'm going to use this flask of oil of sword sharpness, or whatever, fire breathing.
Yeah. I remember the puzzles being interesting, the combat being annoying, and the walking through tunnels and having people be just mysteriously taken just be downright nasty. So I'm looking forward to it again. That should be fun.
That might be the best summary I've ever heard. That's exactly why I wanted to do the puzzle instead of the combat heavy.
All right. Very good. So let's move on. We've got.
You want to actually talk about Star Trek?
Oh yeah, that seems to be something we should talk about. So 0 Hour is out. Unfortunately, our timing being on the West Coast and recording late does not allow the TUI brand manager to join us. However, have you had a chance to look at any of the cards, make any plans, anything enticing?
Well, no plans because it's TUI, but it's interesting to look at. I think the thing is, my opinion holds with the theming of the set or lack thereof, which is, there's not, the last several sets in what is it called, Phase 2 or whatever, have all been. Here's this thing and here's this thing and those are the things, whereas so it's like, okay, I'm excited to maybe try DS9 or whatever faction that they focused on, if I were to play, and there's nothing like that. It's like, oh, that goes good in that. This one card might go good in that deck.
Yeah, there were two cards that I saw that made me want to take something that I played a long time ago. Surprisingly, it's Romulan. Harried and Harassed is a dilemma that says it costs 2. Your opponent chooses a staff ship in another mission and places it at this mission. And if you have a pursuit event out, if your opponent has a pursuit in it, it goes back and it is not overcome. It goes back into the deck. So that's neat. So you flip this over, I get to move my ship over, and now I got all my annoying people at your mission all of a sudden. I don't have to worry about flying over. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And the companion to that is a Romulan card, Effective Deterrent. I guess this would have been fun if it were Pursuit, because then it would combo nicely. Probably too much. You place in your core. When an opponent's mission attempt fails, if your Romulan ship is at that mission, you can place your ship at your mission. So you use the dilemma to get your ship over. You do your, you've got to discard to use diplomacy. Haha, you don't have any cards left. You need diplomacy. And then after the mission attempt fails, your ship just bounces back to your mission. No range used, no resources used, but I got to use all my cool stuff.
Yeah, and you could still do your own thing on your turn without having to worry about following him. That one ship having to follow him around all the time.
Exactly. So could be fun.
Okay, you know what? There was one thing, or a couple of things I thought were cool. That actually take me way, way, way back to probably one of the most fun instances I had with second edition, and might be one of my first, which was, if you'll recall, you remember that very first Comic-Con, not even before I moved here, but the summer before we moved here, and we were looking, and there was a weekend-long team event or something, or a month-long team event you had been doing here in San Diego, and your partner crapped out on you, and you needed somebody to help with the Romulans.
Yeah,
and I grudgingly.
It was a long kind of spatial rifts, early spatial rifts, and it was teams.
Yeah, like the
we were playing Romulan. There were, I think, Johnny and this other guy were playing Bajorans, and we had at least 2 other pairs of people.
Yeah, that was Jeff and Thomas were playing Cardassian, because I remember they were doing the early Garrick abuse.
Yep.
And I forget the other one, but yeah, I had a lot of fun, because I think we had decided you would do missions and I would go around killing people, because our affiliation goal was assassins.
Yes.
And so we went through and like I found all the, oh, I've got this, so you should take that. It was a
That's right, because
harkened
it was a 4-player game, and
right.
we were we controlling each other's resources?
I think we could on each other's turns, like you could move your opponent's stuff around, um, but we could still. What were I think they were unique between us, and so we were deciding which cards would go in whose deck.
Right. Okay.
And so I took all the assassins, and I took all my Romulans that were good because it was early, and it was not easy to get those cards. There were a lot of cards in that first set, and so it was like in early CCG days where we're like, okay, well I have some of this, yeah, I'll loan that to you, and you give me that because I don't have any of that yet. And balancing that out, that was a lot of fun, and just going around killing people was a lot of fun. It's like, oh, that's really annoying. You need that right there. I'm going to go kill that guy. That's been a deck, from early on. Not maybe necessarily a super successful deck. I think we beat Johnny and
Tommy.
Tommy?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that had more
because
to do with Tommy's lack of team play than anything else.
yeah, I just remember Johnny being exasperated the entire game.
And him
and just,
completely being against playing in teams for the rest of his CCG career up to this day.
Yeah. And that's why we'd never done it again. But it was a lot of fun, and that's a fun deck. That's a little strategic. You really got to be good at solving if you're going to take the time to send your other guys over there and harass them with the assassins. Or be like Thomas and know exactly what they need and when they're going to need it, so you can pull their linchpin out. But I like that there are a few support cards now in there, and they've been dribbling out. There's been like one every couple of sets. There's a dilemma now, or I like that, and another assassin card that helps guys who are just assassins. But that was at least nostalgic. I was like, that would be fun to do something like that again and have that. I don't know how well that deck would do, but you could at least go around and pick your opponent's guys off and play for a tie or something.
I may not win, but you're not going to win.
Oh God, that sounds like my last major 2E event at Gen Con. Back before continuing committee. It's like, all right, I'm just going to play monkey and blow up your ships for 3 rounds until I get my promo foil so I can go home.
Yes, I understand. All right. The other last card was Particle 010, which is interesting. Because persistent dilemmas are interesting. I don't know if it's going to be a thing until, because they're all either planet or space, and that's limiting.
Yeah.
Right. But making them pretty much free, that's good. I don't know. You can make them.
I think the problem is
with your 50-point missions, and if you're playing Borg.
Yeah. Every time I tried it, you need so many support cards, and the problem with all the support cards is they're all you can destroy them, you can wipe them out all in one shot if you get the right card, and it makes it really tough to hold off your dilemmas with however many points you got when you're counting on them being cheaper and you're counting on being able to redraw things so that you can swap them out with whatever bigger tattoo or whatever the other cue cards are that let you cycle through them. So until there's a mechanism like that can really be defended and isn't just easily overrun to screw up your entire dilemma strategy, I don't know how that's going to be viable.
I agree. Yeah, because they're bad already, and they're making them better with these cards. But if those cards go away, then they're bad again, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's rough.
Yeah, and there's not really anything referencing. It's not like 1E where you can be like, make a card that says any event that mentions a persistent dilemma is immune to Kevin Uxbridge while you have a persistent dilemma under your opponent's mission. That's going to be really difficult to identify all of those cards, and there's not a keyword related to them on the events to unite them like that. It's those events don't say persistent.
Yeah. All right. Well, there was a 0-hour release event planned for yesterday. I made sure that Mr. Kirk had the release kit. However, I only see 2 people pre-registered, and I don't see any results. So I don't know if they were able to play or not. Sundays are tough, and I was at a tournament of a different sort, so I did not make it. I'm guessing you didn't go as well.
I did not.
All right. Well, looking ahead on the tournament forecast, we've got a constructed event on the 1st of July. And I believe that was scheduled to be our regional. And there are 4 of us scheduled, signed up for it right now. Are you around that weekend or are you out?
I am around, but I'm probably out. That's getting into July. We're going to have family in town getting ready for Comic-Con. I can't imagine not being overwhelmed at that point.
Yeah.
With preparations.
I have nothing on my calendar that weekend because that is when all the softball has finished. However, there's talk of extending the tournament season for a week, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it or not. I'm hoping to go. I'm planning on making it. So and it's on my calendar in big, bright, and orange. So I'm hoping I can make it because
you are one of those 4 signed up. So
I am. Yeah. Well, on the other hand, Charlie hasn't signed up, so he could be the 4th of the rule.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're true.
But I am planning to be there. I'm planning to make a deck and planning to be there. And once you go through all the trouble making a deck, you really need to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of 1E, then, shall we talk about the errata?
Yeah.
We got a page and a third, although 3 of those cards are the same. The revolving door. A couple of these are just minor little tweaks for something that's coming out in the future. But War Council is back. Revolving Door is back, although it's kind of different and not nearly as intimidating as it used to be. What are your thoughts on this set? This little mini set of 12-ish cards.
Well, the first thing I'll say is what everybody has said on the article notes, which is when you post errata articles, please link and/or post a picture of the card you're errataing so we can see the new text instead of just talking about what's different. And we're like, well, I don't understand what's different. Why is this different? And that's the only article.
Yeah, I think what would be great would be, this is the old text. This is why it was bad. This is the new text.
Yeah, post the old card on the left, new card on the right.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then have the little description in the middle. I like it.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. I get that it's the problem with Revolving Door was if you weren't ready for it, then you were basically boned, and so they built in sort of an a way to get out of it into the card. But this still feels like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. If you already have card advantage, then you can use your card advantage to keep screwing me over with this while I have to keep using a card. If you're drawing more cards than me, then you don't care that you have to keep discarding one to close the door, and then I have to keep using, if you're drawing 4 cards and I'm drawing 3 cards, then you're still getting more cards than me and I'm losing resources having to keep opening my doors. So, and all it costs you is a card play. It is an event. You do have to draw into it.
It is unique. And a lot of times you'll see someone seed a temporal micro wormhole and then download a space-time portal. So if you're worried that it's going to completely lock you out of playing it, you probably have another door that you can fetch and eke some out if you have to. But for those minimalist decks that are just trying to play, 1 AU door and an outpost and that's it, that's going to be tough to work around. You're probably right. I don't know. I didn't I didn't get very much. I didn't get to play test this one, so it'll be interesting to see how people play it. And well, it's such an old card, you know.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in so long. It'll be interesting to glue this on one of those old reflections cards and see what happens.
Yeah, just the text box on the old
Yeah.
foil. Yeah. So here's my problem with these really old cards that get eroded is that there seems to be a philosophy or an approach, a feeling that I know at one point was the philosophy of the errata team, and maybe it was just of a group of people who want to be on the errata team or used to be on the errata team. But there's this sense of we really want to keep the flavor of the original card. And the problem is all of these cards are banned because they're dick cards. And I have no desire to maintain the flavor of a dick card. And take that as you will. But it's like, oh, we will still keep the dickishness, but we'll make it slightly less dickish. Like, that doesn't do it for me. I'm much happier just continuing to keep this card out of the game. So
you do not have the completionist philosophy that everything should be removed eventually from the ban list one way or the other, or would you rather have seen Revolving Door just be completely different since it was a not fun card to play in the beginning?
It would not be the first time that a card has come back completely different. I don't think that's anything we have to maintain. If you really want to bring a card back, then there are certainly plenty of things you could do to make use the Revolving Door philosophy or approach as a mechanic that would have been fun and interesting without continuing to dick people over in a way that's really hard to come back from instead of impossible to come back from. I just think it's unnecessary.
Fair enough. We got a brand new version of Sarek.
Yeah, isn't that so there was a mismatch with the lore requiring keywords and such, and for some reason in the home front versions they changed the lore to match the new pictures because sometimes the pictures were slightly different.
Right, but since the picture was from a different movie altogether,
Right.
they did that for Tiro and Founder Leader and Janeway. But for Sarek, since it was from a different movie altogether, they just said, you know what? We're going to give them new lore. We're going to give them a different special download, and we get a new card. Done.
So that's interesting, and it maintains whatever keywords they're trying to maintain or lore things they're trying to maintain. And now we have something that downloads facilitate PTOX. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So here's my problem.
Okay. How do you decide which one to use?
No. I didn't leave a space for Ambassador Sarek when I was putting my binder together because it was a reprint. So when I printed this, I slid him into the motion picture section. Now, every card from Homefront whatever to onward in the Federation binders has to be shifted over one because Sarek has to live in the very beginning of the Homefront.
Oh, man. Yeah. That's a problem.
All right. Well, it could be worse. But now it's not a reprint. It has to live somewhere else. That's me being a completionist. There were a couple of cards from the 50th set that got the correct wording. Inner Light and Battle of Sector 01. And I think I want to say that it's one of those. This is how people were testing it, so this is how it should be written.
Right. So, I mean, this is what was intended.
Yeah, I know that certainly cards that I put out have gone through the oops. Did we leave a word out? So that's fine. No worries there. I think Stratagema. I think they keep cutting things out of there because they keep getting errated and re-released in the wild. So that's fine. Eventually, Stratagema is just going to be empty. Although I guess they added Outgun to that, so that was an addition.
Yeah. Temporal Wake is all kind of the exact same thing as the new cards that got eroded. They're just like, I think this wasn't really intended to be used the way it was being used for the reason it was banned. So they fixed it to do what it was supposed to do originally, which is play it on yourself if you want to follow somebody back.
Yeah,
but
not play on someone else and
not play on somebody else to
random
make them follow you back.
Yeah, exactly. But there's something new on there that wasn't on there before, and it's the pursuit icon, which is kind of cool. I like that. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's ever going to be helpful, but
but it
neat.
totally makes sense because that's what they're doing. Hot
It's
pursuit,
right in the
hot
lore.
pursuit.
And the last is War Council. Wow. How long ago do you remember seeing a card that did this with not quite exactly this text? Because this has been going bouncing around for a long time.
A long time. How long, Ben?
Long time.
Yeah, it's. I can't even keep track anymore. I know that the main problem was to keep it from splashing. That seems to have been solved. I don't know. I'm not a big non-aligned only player, so I don't know how well this works with anything. But I could certainly see it being fun with the TNG artifact guys or the TNG Android board deck. Those seem like they could supplement each other pretty well without getting into too many crazy free reports that all work together. And VIP and civilian still being cunning. I like that it's native to the quadrant. I don't know if that was something that was in there before, but I know it didn't used to be like War Council just let you drop everybody anywhere wherever the War Council was, so you could have all these crazy non-aligned guys from the Delta Quadrant.
No, it just was that people played it in the Delta Quadrant all the time because there were so many good civilian and VIPs.
Okay.
It used to be the same. It's civilian VIP or native to the quadrant or cunning +2, and one can report a board for free. But you could play it with any deck, so it just made another free headquarters, right?
Right.
Whereas now you have to devote 2 non-aligned. I mean, you could play. No, I mean you can't actually play with aligned cards because they don't work with them. So
yeah,
I
mean you could play them somewhere else if you have it, but they still can't work together.
Yeah, and there's no. It'd be weird to have a non-aligned aligned treaty because normally you don't need one. I guess you could drop a temporal micro wormhole and play 1 or 2 people, but
I tell you what, if we get an effing non-aligned treaty before we get a frickin' Ferengi treaty, I'm gonna be pissed.
Wow, yeah, that's funny.
I've been pitching the freaking buy your way into a treaty countdown treaty for literally years.
Yeah,
and I think that
to reset the countdown.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. It's thematic, it works, and that should totally be a thing. And I don't know why it isn't yet. But if we get a non-aligned treaty before we get some kind of Ferengi treaty, that's balls.
And I like that it still has the free draw 4 card or draw 3 cards. If you get a bunch of treacherous people out, that's great. It's kind of like a one-off Kivas Fajo that can't be mirrored if you got the right people out. So that's fun. Yeah. So, man, I like that TNG idea. I wonder if there's anything, if there's enough, there's enough Gamma Quadrant people to do a. Probably not. Or even looking back at all the DS9, faction builders, I can't. They were all either based off the Nor, and that made me think too hard, and I didn't want to do it, or it was too complicated, and I just didn't want to do it. Whereas, TNG was pretty dumb, simple. You drop those all guys that work together. I think TNG is a way to go. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to see if you could do a Delta Quadrant deck with just those non-aligns, because there was a lot of them. A lot of dual personnel,
all those
and
dual,
there's
the
the
Maquis
think
and
tank people, the
yep.
Maquis, and all the Equinox guys. I mean, you could certainly field a team, you just wouldn't get to do what was the really backbreaking thing, which was double them up with Hirogen or Kazon or Vidian or Federation or multiples of the above, and really go to town with all the free reports. But yeah, if you could just get the one.
I mean, you've got
With all
Okapa and Neelix people.
Yeah, Talaxians,
Galaxian,
and
yeah, they all report for free.
get the think tank guys are big, and the Pandari,
Yeah,
our
yeah.
champion stuff. So yeah, that might actually be an interesting way to play in the Gambit Quadrant. You get all those tanky people, but still, have a little bit of a challenge.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, very good. I think that we just chat about all the different cards. I'm scrolling all the way to the bottom, and there's nothing hidden down at the bottom row, so I'll close that up. I have a War Council card that goes back to 2011, but I know we talked about it before that, so I don't think that's the origin of that. We talked about the tournament, and boy, that's so two other. Okay, I think that's the end of the 1E. We've got two other things. We've got at least one other thing for 0 Hour to talk about. I mentioned it previously. The release kits are out. All the cards are put together, and I've sent most of them out that have been ordered. If there are any other orders, I will probably be sending them out a week from today. Yeah, there are a couple people who have ordered some, so I'll get those out. And if I'm not mistaken, the new promos may have arrived, the new tournament promos. So we're going to get together and put together a bunch of those things, and I will get those up, and we'll talk about spoiling those soon enough as well, too. Maybe we can get some spoilers on those.
Awesome.
Anything else we want to talk about?
Well, just one last thing. I did notice. It's too bad that there was not a tournament yesterday, or at least it didn't go off. Or at least the results are not in if it did go off, because 0 Hour was legal on Friday. I did see some new achievements go off on Friday for the regional season that were backdated for all the regionals and Masters season. There's probably some other things that went live that day, but I don't think anybody's earned them yet. So
interesting.
It's not, I think, going to be as easy this time around because of the aforementioned reasons of theming 0 Hour.
Yeah.
But there are a few recurring things that are they're on enough cards that I think you can figure out, and I think we might have even mentioned them today.
Excellent. All right. Well, good luck to those who are hunting that kind of thing. We'll see what comes up probably this weekend, right?
I would think so. If nothing else, we will definitely see some new things pop up.
All right. Well, I will be in Origins this weekend. I'll be back on Monday with a report for that. I'm interested to hear what kind of fun achievement stuffs get unlocked and revealed over the weekend. And I guess we'll talk again in a week.
Fantastic. I look forward to hearing all of the Origin stories.
Wow, really?
It just came out, man.
Yeah. I'll be bringing the Escape game that's been themed for Star Wars. I think I'm going to bring Sushi Go as well because that's kind of a fun party game. And I'm bringing an extra large suitcase so that I can bring back something. So we'll see what it is.
Awesome. I look forward to finding out what that is. So that's all the intelligence we have this week. In the meantime, I am Sir Rogue.
And I am still Sir Dan.
And I will remind you all to expand your power in the Origins universe.
And I will hope I don't get stuck because it's going to be thunderstorms all week long to end.